This video contains meaning of cost accounting. It is in Chapter 1, named Introduction, of the textbook, Management Accounting. This chapter briefly explains about financial accounting, cost accounting and management accounting. This is more suitable for B.Com, B.B.A, M.Com and M.B.A of all universities of India and foreign countries. It is suggested to study through laptop. Presented by Dr.M.Wilson. Cost accounting. Cost accounting emerged as an accounting system to face high competition in the business. In order to withstand competition, the concerns have to supply goods at low prices. Companies could be able to supply goods at low prices only by reducing the cost of production. Cost accounting as a subject is designed to provide many methods and techniques to reduce the cost of production through various stages of production. Definitions of costing, cost accounting and cost accountancy. 1. Costing. The Institute of Cost and Management Accountants, ICWAI, London defined costing as the ascertainment of costs. It includes the technique and process of ascertainment of costs. The technique means the principles and rules required for ascertainment of cost of production of products and services. This process refers to the procedures for the ascertainment of cost. 2. Cost accounting. ICWAI London defined cost accounting as the process of accounting for cost from the point at which expenditure is incurred or committed to the establishment of its ultimate relationship with cost centers and cost units. In its widest usage, it embraces the preparation of statistical data, the application of cost control methods and the ascertainment of the profitability of activities carried out or planned. Hence, the cost accounting is the process of determining cost of activities of a concern and the ascertainment of the profitability from the activities. 3. Cost accountancy. ICWAI London defined cost accountancy as the application of costing and cost accounting principles, methods and techniques to the science, art and practice of cost control and ascertainment of profitability as well as presentation of information for the purpose of managerial decision making. Hence, it is clear that cost accountancy includes costing, cost accounting, budgetary control, and cost audit. Classification of costs. 1. Element-wise classification. 2. Functional-wise classification. 3. On the basis of identifiability. 4. Behavior-wise classification. 5. On the basis of controllability. 6. On the basis of time. 7. On the basis of relevancy. 1. Element-wise classification. On the basis of element-wise, costs may be classified into a. Material cost, b. Labor cost and c. Expenses. A. Material cost. The cost incurred for the purchase and storage of material is called material cost. Material cost is classified into I. Direct material cost and e. Indirect material cost. Direct material costs are those material costs which can be easily identified in a product. It can be easily allocated to the process of production. Indirect material costs are those material costs which cannot be easily identified in the product. It cannot be allocated but apportioned to the process of production. B. Labor cost. The cost incurred in the form of wages and salaries to the employees of a concern is called labor cost. Labor cost may be classified into I. Direct labor cost and e. Indirect labor cost. Direct labor costs are those labor costs which can be easily identified in a product. It can be easily allocated to the process of production. Indirect labor costs are those labor costs which cannot be easily identified in the product. It cannot be allocated, but apportioned, to the process of production. C. Expenses. The costs other than the material cost and labor cost are called expenses. Expenses are also classified into I. Direct expenses and indirect expenses. Direct expenses are those expenses which can be easily identified in a product and can easily be allocated to the process of production. Indirect expenses are those expenses which cannot be easily identified but apportioned to the process of production. 2. Functional-wise classification. Classification of costs on the basis of the functions of an organization is called functional-wise classification. It may be classified into a. Production cost, b. Administration cost and c. Selling and distribution cost. A. Production cost. The cost incurred in the factory or workplace of a concern is called production cost. It includes the cost of direct material, direct labor, direct expenses and factory indirect expenses, factory overhead. The total of direct material, direct labor and direct expenses is called prime cost. When factory overhead is added with prime cost, it is called production cost or factory cost. B. Administration cost. The cost of administration of an organization is called administration cost. It includes indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. Example: stationery, salary, traveling expenses, refreshment expenses, etc., incurred for the administration department. C. Selling and distribution cost. The costs incurred for selling and distribution of a product are called selling and distribution costs. It includes indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. Example: stationery, salary, traveling, refreshment expenses, etc., incurred for the selling and distribution department. 3. On the basis of identifiability. On the basis of identifiability, costs are classified into A. Direct costs, and B. Indirect cost. A. Direct costs. Direct costs are those costs which can easily be identified in a product. It can easily be allocated to the cost center. It includes direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. B. Indirect costs. Indirect costs are those costs which cannot easily be identified in a product. It cannot be allocated to the cost center and it should be apportioned. It includes indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. 4. Behavior-wise classification of costs. On the basis of behavior, cost may be classified into A. Fixed cost, B. Variable cost, and C. Semi-variable cost. A. Fixed cost. The cost which remains constant up to a certain level of activity is called fixed cost. It may also be stated that the cost which would not change due to the changes in the volume of production. This cost should be incurred irrespective of the number of units manufactured. This cost should be incurred even though the company do not produce any units. Fixed cost per unit is variable. Example: salary to staff, rent, insurance, etc. B. Variable cost. The cost which changes according to the changes in the volume of production is called variable cost. It varies in direct proportion to the volume of production. Variable cost per unit remains fixed. Example: direct material, direct labor, direct expenses. C. Semi-variable cost. The cost which is partly fixed and partly variable is called semi-variable cost. Example: salary to salesman based on monthly salary plus commission, telephone charges, etc. 5. On the basis of controllability. On the basis of controllability, cost may be classified into A. Controllable cost, and B. Uncontrollable cost. A. Controllable costs. The costs which can be influenced by the action of the management of a concern are called controllable costs. Example: salary and wages, electricity, telephone charges, etc. B. Uncontrollable costs. The costs which cannot be influenced by the action of the management of a concern are called uncontrollable costs. Example: price of raw material, freight charges, etc. 6. On the basis of time. On the basis of time, costs are classified into A. Historical cost, and B. Predetermined cost. A. Historical costs. Costs which have already been incurred are called historical costs. It is otherwise called as actual cost incurred for the production. B. Predetermined costs. Costs which are estimated in advance before the commencement of production are called predetermined costs. It is also known as estimated cost or standard cost. 7. On the basis of relevancy. On the basis of relevancy, costs are classified into A. Relevant costs, and B. Irrelevant costs. A. Relevant costs. Relevant costs are those costs which are reliable for taking managerial decision. These costs are not subject to immediate changes. But relevant costs are subject to change in future due to the changes in the decision of management. B. Irrelevant costs. Irrelevant costs are those costs which are not relevant for taking managerial decision. These costs may change often, and also it is difficult to estimate these costs.